Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about AEW All In, August 27th, 2023. Literally a 4-hour show, thereabouts. Very, very long show. And it included some backstage drama. Did I say backstage? I mean backstage drama between CM Punk and Jack Perry. We'll talk about that when we get to it. The highest paid attendance in wrestling history. The biggest wrestling event of all time. At least that's what we were told. And they will be doubling down next year. Is that good or bad? We'll have to see. So let's get into it. First, the actual attendance for the show was announced as over 81,000 paid. That was the idea, is that 81,000 people paid to be there. Now, Tony Khan later would say that it's over 90,000 if you account comps and ushers and staff and all this sort of stuff. It'll be over 90,000 people in the building. So he's trying to convince everybody that 81,000 people bought tickets. Now, are you convinced of that? I won't be convinced unless a third-party source can verify it. I don't really care either way. It's just that we've been hearing 80,000 people, 81,000, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I could say this, however, if you're WWE, you should be smiling right now. And the reason why you should be smiling is and I think I just read this in Ty Gordon's book, is that he felt the reason why WWE, or particularly Vince McMahon, was funding ECW was because he saw ECW being worth more to him alive than dead. And the reason for that being is that once he was able to, there was another promotion for, not only for him to send talent that he wasn't using, not only another promotion for him to get talent that, they had worked and got over, but also there was different things for him to learn from the ECW product. So if you're WWE, you're glad AEW's around. Number one, you're glad they're around because MLW is suing you for being a monopoly. And if you could show that, hey, in just 4 years, this wrestling promotion went from, not even existing to now beating us in paid attendance all over the world. And then what's MLW's excuse? Why can't they do that? So that's one way you could use AEW for being around. Another is, if you're sick of people, you're tired of them, you got somewhere for them to go, and you can always look at their roster, see who's getting in trouble, see what's going on, and when people are starting to sort of get fed up, frustrated, and they're ready to leave and jump ship, they've already been on TV, everybody already knows who they are, and you could pull another Cody Rhodes situation where you could just snatch a guy, usually somebody from the mid card or the lower card of AEW, and bring them to WWE TV. So if you're WWE, you should not be too upset if AEW broke the attendance record, because now you can use that in your court documents and saying, look, this company is doing just fine. They're not complaining about not having access to buildings or whatever. They're doing it. They ran Wembley Stadium, got 80,000 people. Why MLW can't do it? That would be like in one of my statements. Like I would have like half my argument would be AEW went here, and here, and sold tickets. Why MLW can't do it? Why is it that AEW can be on TBS and TNT, MLW can't do it? Why won't MLW try to be on TNT or TBS at the same time that AEW's on there? I would beat them to death with the fact that AEW exists and the fact that AEW has been successful. How much of a success they've been, of course, is questionable. But 80,000 seats, good on them if they're able to do it. I saw plenty of tarps during the matches. I still saw empty seats. I'm talking deep into the show as far as the Stadium Stampede was concerned. If you can look into the crowd and you can see rows of empty seats, not tarps. Tarps are one thing, but when you see rows of empty seats, like 4 or 5 seats here empty, 7, 8 seats here empty, 9 or 10 seats here empty, and you'll see like 1 or 2 people sitting in that section. And if the drones don't go over there, then you'll never see it. But the building looked full. I can tell you that. It looked full. It looked good, regardless of what the attendance was. Even if the attendance was half that. Even if the attendance was only 40,000 people. 1, that's more than they've ever been able to do before. 2, it's still very fucking good and sets AEW's attendance record. Now, they announced that they're going to run Wembley next year for All In. A lot of people cheered. I raised my eyebrow because I'm like, I looked at this thing like a bank robbery, you know? Like, you're hot in one market, they're underserved, you hit that market again. You hit that market, great. Hitting that market again the very next year, same arena, which means same ticket prices, I don't know. Most people were attracted to Wembley because they thought it was going to be some kind of once in a lifetime experience. Once you make it a regular thing, people start to taper off. We said this about Chicago, right? They keep going to Chicago for these big events. Keep going. The first time you go, it's a huge event. Everybody's big. They want to go. The next time, not as big. Third time, not as big. You may have to change, rejigger some things. Fourth time, For instance, they're going to Chicago for All Out next week, and I ain't heard nothing about the attendance there. And that's their major, that might as well be their home market. They're in Chicago so much. I think that they run in Chicago more than they have run anywhere. And it seems to me like they burned out Chicago and they burned out New York because they used to run New York a lot too. So they burned out Chicago and New York, and now they're looking for another market. And now London seems to be that market, but you can't run London every couple of weeks. So they're going to go there every year. It still may work. I don't think they'll, surpass their current record in terms of attendance. But it still may be great because they still have a audience over there who will, as long as they just show up, you're going to have a certain amount of people who are going to show up because the company is going to be there. But I think you're going to lose a lot of that specialness. And that's one thing I really wish they had left alone, is they really should just let this show be special. And now they're going to get people to think every year in late August, you're going to get an all-out show. So now people are going to say, I'll skip next year's show. I'll go to the one after. The travel might not be the travel from such and such or from some other country or from somewhere else in the country might not be worth it for this show. We'll go to the next one or whatever the case may be. And that's a different, that's a psychological animal, a philosophy issue. I'm not so sure if telling everybody a year in advance you're going to run that show is particularly the best marketing idea. But I can't complain. The guy managed to steal this house this time because the show was basura in terms of the matchmaking, the storytelling, and in some cases even the execution wasn't all that good. But they stole the house on this one. They did a very good job. All right, so let's talk about the pre-show. The pre-show featured Aussie Open actually losing the tag team titles to Adam Cole and MJF. MJF hits the kangaroo kick. Later, they hit the double clothesline on Skinny Guy from Aussie Open. And they pin him and they win the match. Let me tell you something. Before we even get to the main event, the crowd was more hype for the kangaroo kick and the double clothesline and the pop for the pin in this match than they were for 90% of the stuff on this show, including the main event. This match was more over than the main event. Them as a team is more over than them being opponents. And I think they were very smart in realizing that and sticking with it. Now, to talk about the main event, because, you combine like objects, the main event of the evening was Adam Cole versus MJF for the world title. Now, the crowd was into it, but they had been sitting there for a while at this point, and they had plenty of stuff to pop for because they beat the crowd to death with babyface victories, okay? Especially hometown babyface victories. So the crowd was not, and the crowd was a little bit torn. They weren't sure who they wanted to side with. This is the problem when you have guys who are both over, both baby faces, and they're fighting each other. The crowd is kind of like, I don't know, but they did want to see a winner. In terms of the match was fine. I don't think it surpassed their previous match with the clear babyface and the clear heel. I also think the double pin spot was absolutely stupid. All right, that double pin spot was so damn dumb. And it brought the crowd down. Now, they ended up getting back up, but they brought the crowd down. I was like, why would you do that? Who booked for you to do a false double pin finish in the middle of this match? In the middle of the biggest wrestling event you guys are probably ever going to do, You decided to do a double pin. That's dumb. Don't do a double pin spot, right? And lead people to believe that it's going to be a draw. So things got silly from here. Adam Cole asked for 5 more minutes. I'm like, why would he ask for 5 more minutes? It wasn't a time limit draw. It was a double pin draw. You know, you should ask for the pin to not count and for us to start over. You know, anyway, MJF agreed to not only 5 more minutes, but to continue the match until there was a decisive winner. And then he continues to try to cheat. He tries to pull an Eddie Guerrero by, pretending he got hit in the head with a chair. He also pulled out the Dynamite Diamond ring, but he, was conflicted about using it. Roderick Strong and Matt Taven, all those guys came out there. They tried to entice Adam Cole into cheating, into turning his back on his brochacho MJF. But in the end, Adam Cole couldn't do it. He throws the belt out of the ring, gets caught up in a small package and pinned. Then he was just flattened. He was deflated that he lost the match. And MJF turned into the most pandering babyface of all time, going over to Adam Cole, telling him how good he was. And, I got lucky. It could have been either one of us. Look, man, we're still the tag team champions. We're going to be good. So Adam Cole is frustrated, snatches the belt and throws it. Snatches the tag team title and throws it. And then in a very bipolar moment, MJF snaps, calls Adam Cole a fake piece of shit. You don't care about me. You only cared about the title. This was all about the title. Then he stood in the middle of the ring, dared Adam Cole to hit him from behind. Adam Cole considered it. Then Roderick Strong was sitting there. He was yelling. I think MJF hit him. I don't remember. And then MJF and Adam Cole hugged it out. And the show goes off the air with the two of them being the ROH Tag Team Champions. MJF still the World Heavyweight Champion. And no turn. I will say this about the no turn. It takes a lot of discipline to not bite the bullet on this. And I'll give them credit for that. On a negative, however, this is coming across like a stealth push for the Kingdom. All right? And I don't like that. All right? I don't like that. In other words, they won the Ring of Honor tag team titles. The only Ring of Honor tag team involved with this had been Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Who cares what his name is, but I just want to be correct. I don't want to confuse people. Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. All right? If we're using MJF and Adam Cole being a tag team to end up feuding with the Kingdom over the Ring of Honor tag team titles, that doesn't work for me, brother, because it's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. I'm not a fan. Now, it's the only option you got now because you didn't turn MJF and you didn't turn Adam Cole. So now you have to have them fight some heels, and they've already set up Roderick Strong in the Kingdom as being the heels in this situation. And I do think that eventually Adam Cole will turn on MJF, and it'll probably be after they lose the titles. But I have to give them credit for their discipline. They didn't knee-jerk and have one of these two guys turn on each other. They did tease these guys turning on one another, but they stuck to it. They're going to continue their story. They seem to have a plan with this story, and I'm going to give them the wide breath in order to tell the story. The issue we got here is that the heels are not interesting. There hasn't been much of anything between Roderick Strong and the Kingdom yet. They haven't cut too many promos. They haven't come out and confronted Adam Cole and MJF yet. They haven't really inserted themselves into the story. And I think now is the time to do that. Is that you can get more legs out of this story once you start really inserting the heels. Now that MJF and Adam Cole have their individual situation done with, they have a collective issue, which is the tag team titles. Now you can interject your heels, and you can actually inject some heat and get some heat on the Kingdom here. And you have, of course, you're going to have 100 singles matches between like MJF and Taven, MJF and Bennett, MJF and Strong. Then you have Adam Cole versus Taven, Adam Cole versus Strong, Adam Cole versus Bennett. And then you have the various tag team matches, and it may be a 6-man tag if there was another party, like I say, a Kyle O'Reilly. I don't know if he's ready to come back yet, but there's different things that you can do to lengthen this thing and strengthen it. So I want to give them credit for actually continuing a longer term storyline and not doing what everybody expected them to do, which is to turn one of them, switch the title or whatever, and then start off Dynamite or this new era, this post-Wembley era, with an entirely new, fresh storyline. Instead, they decided we're going to give the people a finish. It's a decisive finish. MJF did win the match. There was nothing outside of, hey, I could have cheated and I didn't, but both guys did that. Both guys said, hey, I could have won if I cheated, but I didn't. But it didn't work for Adam Cole. Okay, perfectly fine. As far as Aussie Open is concerned, keep them as far away from my television as possible. Thank you very much. That would be a triumph for Tony Khan if he could just keep Aussie Open somewhere else. I don't need them. All right, so who gives a fuck about those guys? All right, next, Hook defeats Jack Perry to regain the FTW title, and this match was a match. I particularly liked the stuff. This was FTW title, FTW rules. So they're fighting outside the ring, Falls Count Anywhere, which was one of the many Falls Count Anywhere matches on the show. I mean, many Falls Count Anywhere matches. So I liked that Jack Perry did the Rolling Thunder on top of the limo. I thought that was pretty dope. I thought that was a dope spot. Nice to see two young guys mixing it up. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't special, but it wasn't terrible. At one point during the match, Jack Perry knocks on the windshield and says, "This is real glass. Cry me a river." He ends up losing the match by submission. Now, at some point between CM Punk, who was in the first match, and Jack Perry, who was in the, I guess you could say, the last match of the buy-in, there was an altercation. There was one of the AEW's famous locker room brouhahas. Now, apparently, from what we learned, is that from Fightful Select, they gave us the deets on this thing, well, as much deets as they possibly had at the time. That first it was announced that CM Punk was still backstage while Jack Perry was ordered to leave and is no longer at the stadium. Later, it came out that, quote, according to one side of the story, it claimed that Jack Perry approached CM Punk backstage and, quote, stepped in his face and bumped Punk. Punk was said to have then pushed Perry. Perry allegedly came at Punk and got choked. So then it was continued that the two of them had some kind of altercation. Raj Giri says that, quote, Fightful noted that there are other versions of the CM Punk Jack Perry altercation that state that Punk threw a punch and that Punk stepped to Perry first. PW Insider reported that Perry was sent away from the building after the incident while Punk stayed. It's a mess. So there was some kind of altercation between Jack Perry losing, coming to the back, and CM Punk going to the ring. Punk wrestled first. So this, whatever incident this was, it was, maybe I'll give it a 10, 15 minute block there. Because it's not like the buy-in ended and the show immediately began. There was a couple of more minutes of, brouhaha and ballyhoo or whatever, So, in this point in time, I guess Punk decided he was going to confront Jack Perry about this real glass comment, which harkens back to their apparent issue from Collision several weeks ago. Jack Perry, was not going to back down. Instead, got in Punk's face. Maybe he threw a punch. Maybe he said something. There was probably some words. And then Jack Perry got choked or punched or whatever. And then they were separated and Perry was sent out of the building because his match was done. That means he was done for the day. Punk still had to work, so he stayed there. Now, Tony Khan, of course, is asked about this at the scrum, and he says, no comment. That is his words. No comment. Look, at some point, you got to have comment. All right? Look, if it was one time and you say no comment, okay, but every time CM Punk gets into it with somebody, it's no comment. We're still looking into the incident. What do you mean? You have 4 hours. I get it that, this is an incident that occurred and you have to produce the rest of the show. I get that. But you should know by now, if this guy keeps starting problems, you need to have already had it in your mind or had it in his mind that this needed to be done or something needed to be done if whatever happened before would have happened again. Let's say you were going to let him get away with arguing or scuffling with the EVPs, which was something that happened almost a year ago now. Let's say you're going to say, we're going to let sleeping dogs lie. It is what it is. But now you have invested millions of dollars into a whole new product for this guy. You've launched an entirely new show for this fella, and he still manages to get into it with people. Bro, at some point, you got to say enough is enough. You know, what is going to end up happening? Somebody's going to end up suing AEW. You know, somebody's going to end up suing, saying, look, this guy just keeps starting problems. One is like 2 weeks ago that he made a quote comment about Hangman Page, about him being a peg warmer. And that was, it was supposed to be a joke. It was like, what is going on? Now, you can say, if you're a pro Punk, that these guys are nitpicking him. You know, they're fucking with him. They're saying little stuff here and there. But he needs to have the ability to let shit go. You need to realize that you don't have to respond to every comment, whether it's vague, you know, or underhanded or whatever. Clearly, Jack Perry is friends with the elite. Everybody knows that. He was one of the hand-picked guys who were brought in, just like Hangman Page. And it seems like those are the guys who CM Punk has upset the apple cart when it comes to those guys. And yes, he's going to continuously get into it with those guys. Punk needs to learn how to remove himself from these situations and to allow them to look like fools, to allow them to look unprofessional, to allow them to look like the problem. Every time he wants to, I'm going to be a man and stand up to them. It's like, okay, well, CM Punk gets into it with Hangman Page. CM Punk gets into it with Kenny Omega. He gets into it with John Moxley. He gets into it with the Young Bucks. He gets into it with Jack Perry. Okay, Jack Perry gets into it with who? CM Punk. Nobody else, just CM Punk. So now you're saying to yourself, these guys don't really have any problems outside of CM Punk, but CM Punk has a slew of fucking problems because there's a bunch of people he can't work with and can't deal with and having personality clashes with. Everybody's going to pressure you to get fucking rid of this guy. All right? There was a sign in the crowd. It was a CM Punk sign that said, best in the world at being a bitch. Now, apparently this sign was taken away from the audience member who had it. There was a guy on Twitter that was begging CM Punk fans not to attack him because he bought a CM Punk t-shirt in which he spray painted a black X over it in protest of CM Punk being there. Now, these people are soft. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. There's no two ways about it. A lot of the elite fans are super, super soft. But you got to have thicker skin. You can't get offended at everything and then call other people soft and weak and they're pussies and all this kind of stuff. It's like, if they're manipulating your feelings, then what the hell are you? You know? Now, there has to be some kind of disciplinary action. You gotta do something. All right? If these two guys got into another physical, verbal altercation or whatever the case may be, you can't have these guys constantly getting into fights backstage. Something has to happen. You know? If you're Tony Khan, what decision do you make? Some people are saying fire CM Punk. I don't think he has the balls to do that. I think he looks at CM Punk as being sort of above the law and too important for their product for him to do that. Do you just piss off the rest of these guys? Are you worried about like somebody like Jack Perry leaving? Because, you know, WWE probably would not do with him what you're doing. And plus he's friends with the elite, like we said. So is he just another guy who can't work Collision? You know, I don't know. But it seems to me that CM Punk constantly getting into it with these guys makes CM Punk look bad. It's constantly making it seem like he's fragile. And that anytime somebody criticizes him or makes a veiled comment about him, we have to deal with potential backstage altercations, fights, or whatever. You don't have to confront people after everything. Everybody can look at this and see that Jack Perry is being a pissy little boy and that this was not worth doing and he should have been reprimanded for this. But something has to happen to him if he decided he was going to confront him over this comment. No, You've already been in trouble because you went out there and made comments and done stuff. And I'm going to be the sheriff of the locker room or whatever, which he says is small dick energy, which is wrestler's court is small dick energy. What was that except, the boys policing themselves? So now CM Punk is going to walk around like he's got a fucking badge. And anytime somebody says something about him, he's going to get in their face. And then that leads to an altercation. And then the boys are going to be looking like, what is it going to take? How many of us is going to have to put hands on him, or he's going to have to put hands on us, or we're going to be yelling at each other, or whatever the case may be, until somebody says, fuck this, he's either going to sue this fucking place, or somebody's going to get fired, or I'm going to tear this bitch up. One or the other is going to happen. Now, so far, everybody CM Punk has gotten into it has been soft, so they're not going to tear the building up. But he might get hit with a lawsuit, that might happen. AEW might get hit with a lawsuit, because if CM Punk is backstage confronting guys, and then has a history of confronting people, and AEW has a history of not doing anything, then what's going to end up happening is the boys, because they're soft, are going to start saying it's an unsafe working environment. I can't criticize this guy. I can't make any references to this guy without, a threat of a physical altercation, and who wants to work under that situation? That's going to cost you millions of dollars. And it's going to be bad. It's already bad PR. Most of the fans don't care because it's the Elite. It's, Jack Perry. It's Kenny Omega. A lot of the older fans, they're looking at it like, all these guys are sissies anyway. Who cares? But a lot of the hardcore AEW fans, they feel like their gut is being wrenched every time CM Punk is in the same vicinity with somebody who's the Elite or the Elite adjacent. And it's becoming a big, big problem. And for their sake, and for the sake of your locker room, you have to be decisive. You have to make a decision. You have to stand up and tell, even if it's just, if this happens again, you're done. Period. No conversation, no debate, no negotiation. This is strike 2 or 3 at this point, depending on whether you want to count the Hangman Page stuff, right? If you want to just say, they're verbally messing with each other or whatever. But physical altercations, if this was a physical altercation, that's strike 2. Any other physical altercations, you have to terminate his fucking contract, period. And in some cases, you might want to just terminate the fucking contract anyway. Because if the guy thinks that there's nothing going to happen to him because he's good buddies with David Zaslav or whatever, then he basically running your fucking locker room. This is detrimental to your fan base, the morale in your locker room, etc., etc. You cannot be weak at this. There are so many stories that are coming out about this guy booting people from backstage at Collision, creating all of these rules. Now he's confronting guys. He's the sheriff of the locker room. He's walking around in a 10-gallon hat with a badge and a pair of boots. And any kind of sissy wrestler comes around here talking shit, he's going to get in his face. It's like, come on, bro. We can't have this. It's completely and totally unprofessional. He wouldn't have done that shit in WWE. Why is he doing that shit in AEW? Stop this. All right? Just cut it out. Enough's enough. Not for nothing, but enough's a fucking enough. We got too much of this. CM Punk needs to not make any more comments about the Elite. He needs to not even converse about them or their friends in public. No more cheap shots on Instagram. No more cheap shots on Twitter. Leave those fucking guys alone. And they need to be told the same thing. The next one of you motherfuckers say anything about CM Punk, you're suspended. Period. Point blank. Period. You're being suspended. You reference him on TV, you're suspended. You make any kind of comment that tries to trigger him backstage, you're suspended. Get these motherfuckers in line. All right? Because you just re-signed them, so they're all going to be stuck together for a little while. And this is not going to last for a long time before somebody gets sued or beat up. Seriously. And then you're going to get sued. All right? Like, the lawsuits or whatever is incoming. So this needs to stop. All right? Now, when it comes to Jack Perry, this is a first offense, in terms of maybe him and Punk has gotten into it before, but this is the first offense if it got physical. You still tell him to stop being a punk bitch. Stop doing stuff that you're doing. The Elite cannot protect you. I'm the boss. I will send your dumb ass home. And you won't work on my television. Period. If you want to go work GCW, you can. You want to go work whatever PWG, you go right ahead. But you won't be on Dynamite. You won't be on Collision. You won't be on Rampage. And I will not fucking pay you. Or if you do have to pay him, you pay him to sit at home. I mean, you had no problem doing it to Miro. You had no problem doing it to Andrade. Why wouldn't you do it to Jack Perry? Because he's friends with the Elite? Fuck you. Send his bitch ass home if he don't know how to chill out. Send him home, shut him down, just like you did to the other guys. Why should it be any different? All right, let's move on. CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, the opening match on the show. For the real world's title, CM Punk wins the match with the Pepsi Plunge. Interesting choice of finish. Haven't seen that move in a while, so it was very welcome. Punk clearly was in the mood to troll tonight. He started doing John Cena spots. He's been doing Hulk Hogan stuff for a long time now. Like, he's been doing Hogan stuff for like a couple of weeks. He did the Randy Savage spin after the elbow drop. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's having a lot of fun out there. I didn't look at it like he was mocking those guys. I look at it, he's more mocking the fan base and mocking the fans of those guys, and also sort of doing a tribute. He did a spinning toe hold in this match too, which of course is the old finisher of Terry Funk. So, I look at things like he's integrating, older talents into his stuff, the guys he grew up watching. I didn't look at it like he was mocking them. I saw a lot of people thinking that he was mocking John Cena or whatever. I didn't look at it that way. We know that him and Cena are actually friendly. I don't know if he's friends with Hulk Hogan, but he grew up during an era where Hulk Hogan would have been the biggest wrestling star on the planet. So that's pretty clear. And Randy Savage would have been a clear, if not B, a clear 1A, 1B situation between Hogan and Savage. So, and he's been doing the Randy Savage stuff since like 2011, so it's not that big of a deal. But he's integrated John Cena into this now. Basically, this match was, I know your stuff already, so I already know what you're going to do, and I'm going to counter it, or I'm going to finger fuck around. Punk knew that Joe was going to walk away if he did a crossbody, so he pump faked, Joe walked away, then he did it, came back with a Hurricanrana, which I thought was pretty sweet. Joe swings Punk into the announce table, breaks the table, comes out bleeding. That was a pretty good spot too. I like that. And in the end, of course, Punk wins with the Pepsi Plunge. A solid match. I wouldn't say it was a banger. I don't think it's the best match these guys have ever had. I do think it's probably not as good as the one they had on TV a couple of weeks ago. Clearly, they're not going to be able to touch the magic that they had in Ring of Honor, but they can create new memories. And I think they did a decent job here. Punk got to work with somebody he liked in front of a large crowd. Joe got to work, and some fans have noted this, that he probably should have worked WrestleMania when he was standing out in the rain in a poncho. That, he probably could have worked that show, even though I think he had a severe injury. But he went from, a guy who was basically retired to now working and we have to put it in air quotes every time we mention it, the largest paid attendance audience in pro wrestling history, unquote. And that's a great deal for Samoa Joe, and he's a guy who fucking deserves that, because he fucking rules. And no, Joe cannot wrestle like he could have 10 years ago, let alone, 20 or some odd years ago. But Joe was great. He deserves this. He rules. The second match on the show, the Golden Elite were defeated by the Bullet Club Gold and Konosuke Takeshita. What Konosuke Takeshita ends up pinning Kenny Omega. This match was exactly what you would expect. A lot of fast-paced action, very athletic talent. The crowd didn't seem to care so much about this match. Kota Ibushi did look better here than he did at Blood and Guts. He did not look good at Blood and Guts. He looked decent here. I liked his showdown with Takeshita when they kind of got face-to-face. That was pretty good. We actually got to see how much bigger Takeshita is than Kota Ibushi, which was great. But Takeshita getting a big win at Wembley was probably the right choice. I'm not going to even hold you up. I think that was the right decision. He's one of your guys that you got for the future. Give him the dub. It ain't going to kill Omega. They're going to run it back and All Out. They've already announced it. It's going to be Omega versus Takeshita at All Out singles match. They probably should have did that match here and then did the 6-man tag and All Out, but I don't know. It's only a week apart. It don't matter that much, either or whatever. So this was fine. Nobody cares about Hangman Page. There's no point in talking about him. Kenny Omega was Kenny Omega. Most of these matches were what you expect them to be. There was nothing outrageous about them that made you jump out of your skin or say, oh yeah, that's not something I would have done. It was more like, okay, this is exactly what I expected it to be, and that's what it was. Match 3, FTR versus the Young Bucks. So the Young Bucks come out to a song that says a super kick knocks you out or something to that effect. And I thought that was their new theme song, and I was like, this is awful. This is the shit. I hate this. I hate this. But it ended up to their regular theme song, which I still don't like, but I like it a lot better than that stuff that they also had, which was terrible. This was another match where it was what we expected it to be. It was a solid match. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was better than the previous matches that they've had. It seemed like they were kind of going through the motions. The crowd was up for most of it, I would say. At one point, they tried the BTE trigger, and then I think it was Cash that moved, and they ended up knocking their knees together, which the Young Bucks didn't sell. They just got like, my knee, and then they went and started doing some more jumps, because that's what they do. That's not ring psychology at all. Like, my knee, and, I just jammed my knee into my brother's knee, but it's okay. We're all right. We're all doing just fine. We're all doing just fine. The Young Bucks stole the Shatter Machine. They only got a 2 count. At one point, they actually hit the Shatter Machine. FTR did, and that was kicked out of by one of the Young Bucks. I forget which one. And then FTR actually hit their version of the Shatter Machine and actually won the match. So FTR wins. They win the trilogy. They are considered the greatest, quote-unquote, greatest tag team of all time. Now, for having beat the Young Bucks legacy is going to be in creating AEW, not in, winning the trilogy over FTR. That doesn't matter. It felt to me like they were just doing the greatest hits in terms of the Young Bucks, because that's really all they do anyway. So I didn't really get this feels like a big dramatic finish to the angle to me. It just felt like there was a third match to be had, and now they've had it, and that's it. And that's kind of how this whole thing has felt. It didn't have the magic that you would have expected. So FTR offered a handshake at the end. The Young Bucks just walked away, did not give them the handshake. So maybe they're going to have a fourth match. Who knows? But it is what it is at this point. The match was fine. I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It was just there. Stadium Stampede, another match that was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was a logistical nightmare with people all over the place. Blackpool Combat Club, Santana and Ortiz were defeated by Eddie Kingston and the Best Friends, which includes Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy gets the pinfall here. And this match, again, exactly what you would expect it to be in terms of chaos. Moxley got stabbed in the head with 100 skewers or whatever. People took pictures of it. They posted those pictures online. Eddie Kingston did his old zombie blood walk from the back to the front. He did that before. It was more awesome the first time he did it. He wasn't involved with the finish. He didn't win the match. Orange Cassidy won the match. And we're really just kind of asking the question here, like, Orange Cassidy's winning almost all of the matches that he's in. When does he wrestle for the world title at some point, right? But they did a spot with Trent's mom came out there. Oh my God. Oh, I can't believe they actually went through a spot of bringing his mom out there, and she brought weapons in her van, which included a plate of cookies, it looked like, or a tray of cookies. I was like, this is so, it just felt crazy. And I guess that was the point, is that but they had just had the FTW title match, just a few hours before, maybe an hour or so before this. That was no disqualifications, falls count anywhere or whatever. And so it felt like it was just another garbage match on the show. It didn't feel special because it wasn't even the only one of this type. They had just had one before this and they had one after this. So it feels like, okay, another no disqualification, no holds barred match. Where this time it was Moxley and everybody bleeding and stabbing each other in the head with skewers. As I said before, really great to see Santana out there. That's my guy, man. He seems to really be about something right now. Not entirely sure about the rest of these guys, but really good to see Santana out there doing his thing, man. It rules. So this match was what I expected it to be. Poor Claudio, he's caught up in this mess. Is he still the Ring of Honor World Champion? Because I can't tell. I don't know if he's still a Ring of Honor World Champion. I think he's been Ring of Honor World Champion for like 6 months, maybe 5 months, or whatever. But it ain't seemed like it. He just seemed to be caught up in these rascally, rabbity, hardcore matches all the goddamn time. Whether it's blood and guts or stadium stampedes or random tornado tags where everybody's bleeding all over the place. It seems like WWE having him as a tag wrestler was the right decision, because AEW doesn't utilize his abilities as a single star as often, and I don't even know who he's wrestling for the Ring of Honor World title, or if he even has an opponent, So, poor Claudio. I guess this is the best he can do. It doesn't matter. Moving on, Women's Championship match, a big old bowl of meh. Saraya defeats Hikaru Shida, Britt Baker, and Toni Storm to win the Women's World title. She comes out to Queen We Will Rock You, surrounded by her family, who are, British wrestling royalty, we're told. And the entire story of the match was about the breakup of the Outcast. Now, Toni Storm has a new entrance and a new look. She is absolutely fucking gorgeous. And the Hollywood graphics that they've used now, they fully leaned into the Hollywood starlet gimmick. They're calling her the illustrious Toni Storm. She hugged Saraya when she got into the ring. You had the idea that they were going to work together and made the best woman win. At one point in the match, Toni punches Saraya's mom. It was completely by accident, but this pissed Saraya off, and then she attacked Toni later on and was viciously attacking Toni. As Toni was about to retaliate a little bit later, Ruby Soho came out and tried to stop Toni from fighting Saraya. She then got blasted in the face by Toni Storm, who then told her, "We're over!" that she's done being a member of the Outcasts. Then she went back to attacking Saraya and ended up getting pinned. So not only did Toni Storm not win, she got pinned by Saraya, which was the right decision. People are bitching about this match being the shortest match on the show. It was only one women's match and it only went like 9 minutes. Look, they told the right fucking story. This is the right story. Saraya wins at home. She fucks over Toni Storm. The Outcasts are broken up. Toni Storm, who was going nutso because she couldn't regain her women's title, will get to continue being nutso. The only problem here is that Saraya is the champion, because she can't fucking work. Her in-ring is so fucking minimal that she doesn't even work as a world champion. But for the storyline to ultimately put Toni Storm and her new character over, okay, fine. If she ends up beating Toni Storm one-on-one, then that's a problem. But if she holds the belt just long enough to reestablish Toni Storm as a singles act away from the Outcasts, a little bit more, and then she drops the belt back to Toni, fine. But Toni's better in the chase position right now. She's better as a heel. She's better in this new character. And she's better chasing Saraya than if she wouldn't want the title herself. So this is the right decision. Ruby Soho being pissed at Toni for hitting her in the face makes sense. Not saying anything to Saraya was weird. So maybe Saraya and Ruby are going to continue being friends. I don't know. Maybe that's going to be the case. But the goal here was clearly to get Toni out of the Outcasts. That was the goal here. That was the focus. So whoever put this match together, they went into the singular focus of establishing the new Toni Storm, getting the belt off of Hikaru Shida, and getting Toni out of that fucking group. All three of these things were done successfully in 9 minutes. I'm good with it. Britt Baker had no business even being in this match. She's cold as a dead fish. I don't know what you could do. Unless Thunder Rosa comes back, I don't know what you could do with her. Hikaru Shida, the only reason she even won the title is to begin this Toni Storm push. Everything's been about Toni Storm so far from my analysis. She lost the title as a way to begin her descent into madness. And now that she's in the madness, everything is going to be about pushing her further into it until she eventually pulls herself out of it. From my analysis, everything is about Toni Storm here. Hikaru Shida basically was not only was she a transitional champion. It was more of a thank you for being the champion during the pandemic when there was no crowd. So now you get to walk into the arena with 80,000 people watching, the largest crowd in wrestling history. Of course, air quotes around all of that. And that was basically a thank you to her. She'd probably never be the champion again. She had no business being a champion this time. Britt Baker is dead in the water. I don't know what you do. She's dead. The match was meh, but then again, it was a fatal four-way. What else could it be? What else could it be? Next, coffin match. Darby Allin and Sting versus Swerve and Christian Cage in a coffin match. Let me tell you this. I had kidnapped this young lady over the weekend. If she's listening to this, then she knows what's up. And she was sitting here politely as I watched this show in the middle of the day on a Sunday. And when Swerve's theme song started to play, she honestly looked at the screen and said, "What the fuck is this?" And as the song is going on, because the live introduction, the live performance of this song is piss poor. It's terrible. All right. She said that this song was Tubi movie quality. And I'm telling you, that rang like a jelly bean in an empty jar in my head for the rest of this match. Is how terrible his theme song is. I love making fun of Swerve's theme song, but the live version of it was even worse. All right. It was not good. Also not good is having women over while you're watching AEW shows. I mean, they can be unbearably bored by these shows. She was more bored because she didn't know anybody more than anything. But she knew Sting, but Sting's old, so I mean, it is what it is. Sting and Darby Allin coming out to some kind of Metallica song. I don't know Metallica's. I know the voices, but I don't know Metallica's discography like that to know what song it was. But they came out to Metallica, so that was interesting. We got full Joker Sting here. The match itself was, again, what you would expect from a coffin match. There was no disqualifications, no holds barred. Sting is jumping off stuff. He jumped onto a table that didn't break, so he climbed up again and jumped off of it again. Sting's just going out there having fun, man. I mean, the guy's 70. You only live once. This is the biggest crowd he's ever been in front of, apparently. So this is great. It's good for him. I mean, what more did you expect it to be? Swerve got Sting in the casket, had Sting in the casket for what seemed like forever while he played around. Then he wanted to bury Sting with his baseball bat. So he put the baseball bat in the coffin with Sting. He then closed the lid and then celebrated as if he'd won without realizing that Sting had used the bat to break the plane of the coffin. Therefore, the coffin match is not over despite the fact that the lid is closed. It's not closed completely. So this is their version of a kick out. So Sting emerges from the thing, beats up Swerve, puts Swerve in, close the lid. Swerve loses. Christian Cage was just there to torment Darby Allin, choke him out, and say he was never going to be the TNT champion. That was pretty much it. Good work for Christian Cage, man. I mean, he didn't do much all night. He got paid a fat, handsome check to not do much of anything. The match wasn't even about him. There was a Nick Wayne run in and all this kind of stuff, but, none of that matters, really. Because I don't think it really changed the trajectory of the match as much as Nick Wayne was just out there because Luchasaurus came out there. I mean, it was just evening up the odds. I will say this, however. I believe it was on Collision where they did AR Fox apology to Nick Wayne when he went up to him and said that he turned on everybody and he beat him up because he believed that everybody had given up on him. He thought that the crowd, that Darby, his family, everybody had given up on him, and that he has also lost his dad. So he understands Nick Wayne's struggles and his issues. And then he offered Nick Wayne a handshake, and Nick Wayne didn't shake his hand, but Darby Allin did. So they're creating a story there between Nick Wayne and AR Fox and Darby and all this kind of stuff. So they're doing something interesting. And I still don't like that AR Fox was kicked out of the group. I don't think you needed to kick him out of the group in order because he can't travel. But they tried to make up for it. And I'm going to give them some leeway. I'll give people leeway when they try and storyline stuff. I want to see your end point. What is your end game? Is Nick Wayne going to get sick of Darby Allin forgiving this guy despite what he did and beat him up? Or, what's going to happen? Is Nick Wayne going to have a match with AR Fox over this? There's going to be some stuff there. But Nick Wayne coming way out there in England just to do a short run-in of this match, pointless. Very, very pointless. And not really worth talking about outside of mentioning their collision run-in too. Okie dokie. Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay wins the match. And even though I didn't pick this to happen, it was the right decision. I don't know what you do with Jericho now. Will Ospreay is basically being primed to be brought into AEW full time. Jericho sung himself to the ring, to which, going my young lady friend, this is the best music she's heard all night, which says this, which is hilarious considering the state of AEW's theme songs. That she think Judas was the best song she'd heard all night, and it was Chris Jericho literally singing it. And I don't think she caught on to that part. But she wasn't watching the show, by the way. Like, she wasn't watching. She was watching movies on her phone or whatever. But I was shocked at how stiff Ospreay was in this match. If anything, the top rope flippity doo dah that he did on Jericho was fucking stiff. Then he followed it up with a flying forearm that was fucking stiff. All right. He seemed to be trying to knock the shit out of Jericho early in this show, in this match, But I feel like I've seen all the Will Ospreay stuff. I don't feel like this match really challenged him as much as it showcased him. Jericho is really good at that. He knows how to get the most out of his opponents. He knows how to show the most out of his opponents. And I think he did that here with Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay wins the match. The ugly German suplex spot on the ring apron. I need not ever see guys do that again. I don't know why people insist on doing that shit, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary for you to do a German suplex and land on your fucking neck on the ring apron. I get it. It's a big show. You want to do something special. It's not necessary. This stuff, look, if let's say Will Ospreay is correct and his contract is up in 6 months, do you think that Tony Khan wants you in one piece or in multiple pieces? You should be trying to be as much in one piece as possible when it's time to start talking money. Because if you're saying, oi, bro, I broke my neck at All In just for you. And he's like, well, you fucking had a broken fucking neck. I mean, he's probably so much of a mark that he'd pay you full price, even though you broke your fucking neck on the show that you didn't even technically work at. But, I wouldn't. You don't pay full price for a busted up fucking horse or a car or anything like that. A pro wrestler would be the same thing. I wouldn't give you all the money in the world if you broke your fucking neck on this show. So you should be trying to protect your investment, which is your body. Wrestlers, your body is your investment. Protect it. Stop letting guys throw you on your fucking head on these shows. Stop being an idiot. Ospreay is an idiot. All right? How many injuries have ruined his career so many times that, he's just not learning? And I do know that Jericho did a run-in at the Rev Pro event. I don't think it matters. Who cares, really? I don't think Will Ospreay should have even worked that show. Again, why run the risk of getting injured or sick or something at a smaller show, even if it's your home promotion or whatever, when you're about to work in front of the largest audience in wrestling history, of course, air quotes. But Ospreay wins. It was the right decision. Okie dokie. Match number 8. The House of Black are defeated by the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn for the Trios Championship. The House of Black have a lantern in their entrance, which was a nod to Bray Wyatt. It's much appreciated. Thank you all very much for that. But the match was pretty straightforward and the Acclaim win. Big pop, huge pop, and it was the right decision. I said this is exactly what they should do, and that's what they did. The House of Black then offered and handed them the titles. They did the house rules gimmick, and the Acclaim chose for the match to be no disqualifications. So another no DQ match. They tried to find a way to spice this up, but it was as straight as a shot of Jack. It is what it is. it is what it is. Billy Gunn wins. He wins a championship. They do the world's largest scissoring party and fade to black. That was it. So now what do you do with the House of Black? I don't know. The Acclaimed going forward is the right decision. Those guys have been, you can count on one hand the amount of guys that are truly over in AEW that are homegrown. MJF, the Acclaimed. Maybe you can say Ricky Starks. So he doesn't. Does he even count as homegrown? I guess you could say. Sammy Guevara, maybe. Jack Perry, maybe. So there's some maybes there, but the Acclaimed is definitely on the list, along with MJF as being the most over guys that they have found and created on their own. They're the right guys to take the titles off of House of Black. And since you're not putting them back in the tag team division, having them be the trios champions is the right move. They needed to have gold. They were the most over when they were the champions. You took the belts from them too soon. Now they can feud with Bullet Club Gold, which include the Gun Boys again. They can feud with some other guys, and they can continue to be over and carry something and have something that means, of value in your company. So the Acclaim winning was the right decision. So I've talked about every match so far. I didn't mention Mercedes Moné being in the crowd. They've been passing that picture around as if she stood on stage. She was just in the crowd. So what? I do think she'll end up in AEW eventually. They're going to want to pay. Look, Tony Khan has an endless bank account. If she says that all she's about is the money, she's going to create some kind of bidding war between WWE and AEW. AEW is going to win that bidding war because they are not above spending more money than they make. And I don't know how much they're going to make on this show. But Tony Khan clearly is running this because out of love, not out of a business. He doesn't care about the business part. If he cared about business, he wouldn't have fucking run Wembley in the first place. So him, being a gambler, is all about taking these risks because he loves wrestling. It's not because it makes good business sense. The fact that some of this stuff actually works out and works into his favor is because he took the risk, which is typical of entrepreneurs. In entrepreneurship, you take a risk, something people say is crazy, and it ends up working out, and then you look like either a genius or a goat. Tony Khan has done a couple of things that has made him look like a fucking genius because he took a risk. And so many people are too conservative in their business models, and they don't understand that you have to take some risks. So Tony Khan took a risk by running Wembley, even though Gates and everything was down, interest in his company was down, and he took this risk and he was able to galvanize his fan base again. It's unfortunate that, Jack Perry and CM Punk got into a fight backstage, but he took that risk and he was able to re-galvanize his fan base, re-energize them, get them back to a point of just loving AEW for its existence. He's willing to pay whatever the cost when it comes to music. He will most certainly play Mercedes whatever she wants just to have this match. While I don't think WWE is willing to do so. They're not as conservative as AEW is in terms of how they choose to run business, but they're more strategic. They're not going to spend a lot of money on Mercedes unless they feel like they can get that money back. AEW doesn't give a fuck about getting that money back. All right. They don't care if that money never comes back. They get licensed music for guys like the Gun Club. Those guys are an absolute pit. I like them. I like them personally. I like watching the Gun Club, but they'll never make you a fucking dime. And they spent money to get 50 Cent song for them. He does this shit all the time for cool view. He does it for cool visual. Wouldn't it be cool if? And then he does this shit and it costs an arm and a leg and people look at it and be like, what the fuck were you thinking? But he's not thinking about it in terms of a business. He's thinking about it like, I love wrestling. Wouldn't it be cool if? And he has the money to make Would It Be Cool If a real thing. This is like the movie The Toy. That's what this is. It just so happens that sometimes this toy can make money for him. It might not make as much as he wants it to make, but it's not going to bankrupt him, at least not right now. So he can keep fucking around with it. So yes, he probably bought Mercedes' seat and made sure the camera stayed on her the whole fucking night. just for the fact, and he keeps saying in interviews, I would love to work with her. I would love to work with her. You wrestlers smell money marks a mile a fucking way. All right, they know them. They know them when they see them. Even if they've never worked with money marks before, they know it. You know, just like you would know one, they know one too. She probably got that ticket paid for. She probably got her flight booked out there, the whole fucking 9 yards, just for the visual, just to have the visual of her being there, just so they could talk about that online, talk about it in the scrum, which they did, and maybe even tease people with the idea that she might join up. So, will I think she'll be there? Fuck yes, I think she'll be there. Because I think Tony Khan will just sign a check, slide it over to her, and say, fill in whatever the fuck you want. I guarantee you, Triple H is not going to look at you and say, I'll pay you $3 million, $4 million, whatever, obscene amount of money to come back. You know? Even though she might want to come back because Ronda's gone now. So, who knows? Maybe Sasha Banks was just like, hey, if I chill, Ronda will be gone and I can come back and be the superstar again. And maybe she will. But she's liking and loving, rather, being Mercedes Moné and creating her own lane and creating her own gimmick and all this kind of stuff. AEW will let her do that. The only issue, only one women's match per night, and it's probably going to be the shortest match on the show. And I doubt she cares about that. You know, she says she's there for the money. She's there for the money. And since New Japan doesn't seem to have any exclusive contracts on their talent, at least not in terms of maybe they're exclusive in Japan, but I don't know how that would work in the United States or whatever. As far as I know, she's still under contract in New Japan, but Will Ospreay is thinking about making the jump. Guys like Jay White made the jump. I wouldn't be surprised if Mercedes Moné doesn't make the jump. I wouldn't be surprised. They've talked about Julia making the jump, the young lady from Stardom. They talked about her making the jump. There has been quite a few people that they talk about AEW poaching from New Japan. I'm not surprised. Mariah May. The WWE, what will WWE want with Mariah May? They already have Tiffany Stratton. Mariah May looks like Tiffany Stratton's big sister. They have 100 fucking girls who look like that. And so it doesn't matter. But Tony Khan has an open checkbook. No doubt he'll probably pay Mercedes whatever she wants because he's a risk taker. And he thinks that he can make some money, or at the very least, take a gem off the crown of WWE and put it into his own head. And he'll do that. And he doesn't have any problem spending the money to do it. So I don't see him doing anything different here. So obviously I think he'll sign her. And maybe at All Out they'll make it official. And when she's medically cleared, she'll make her debut on Dynamite or Collision. However that is going to go. But overall, I think the Wembley show was successful. I don't think anything was spectacular. It felt like the energy was waiting for something big to happen. And they kept doing things that they thought were big, but they were very predictable. But the crowd still liked the show. I think the AEW fan base still liked the show. I think if you're not a big AEW fan, you're kind of thumb in the middle on this show. That's kind of how I am. It's like it was a mid show in front of a big crowd. Okay, but they wanted the big crowd. They didn't really care if the show was fantastic or not. But now we got All Out next week. So let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. And peace out.